All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll go ahead and call the June 15th Airport Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Joel Gardner, Micah Thomason,
Here.
Neil Johnson,
Here.
Bill Schoonover,
Here.
Steve Smith, Cameron McCarron,
Here.
Greg Collier.
Here. All right. Approval of minutes. We'll go through that real quick. Any comments or questions about the minutes? Everyone has had an opportunity to go through those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the May 18th meeting.
Have a motion. Ask for a second.
I'll second.
Micah seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. So I saw Jim Ulmer here. Hello, Jim. Will you stand up for us? Jim is our newest Airport Commission member. He's going to start next month, and he's here just to kind of see how things go. Jason McMullen is our other newest Airport Commissioner. He wasn't able to come today, but he'll be here next month as well. So thanks for being here. And let's go ahead and move into our comments from the audience, and we're going to start with Colby here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wanted to come down for a few minutes. The mayor's out of town, but we wanted to honor two of our Airport Commission members for the time that they've served on this commission, Bill Schoonover and Neil Johnson. I believe that's your name. Yes, sir. I want to say this, serving on a commission, whether it's the Planning Commission, the City Council, Airport Commission, we have a lot of opportunities to serve, but I'm going to be real honest with you. Not a lot of people are willing to put their name on the dotted line to serve our community. A lot of people talk about what they would change if they were in charge, but not a lot of people have a servant's heart. And that's what it takes to serve on a commission, whether it's the Airport Commission, Planning Commission, City Council, or any other elected office. And what makes this so special today when we honor these two men is when you look at their years of service. I think Mr. Schoonover, if my math is correct, and it's off quite a bit, is you've been on this commission for 15 years. And Neil has been on this commission for 25 years. That is 40 years worth of service to the city of Springdale, to something that generates approximately $15 million for our city every year. Think about the impact that has on our community. I believe it's the third largest or third most busy airport in the state of Arkansas. And when you look at all the difference that this airport has made for Springdale, think about all the people who have been here. Think about all the business decisions that have been made because people landed right here in Springdale, the transactions that have taken place, the people who have been able to visit our city. All of those things happen because we have gentlemen like Neil and Bill that are willing to serve on this commission. So I want to give them, as the mayor calls them, a small token of our appreciation. These are made here in Springdale, and we want to give these to these gentlemen. I believe Ann is going to take a picture. I asked Neil when the Springdale Airport Commission started, and he said two gentlemen contacted him one day, Orville and Wilbur Wright, and said that they would like to start Airport Commission here in Springdale. And I'm thankful for this commission that we have and everything you gentlemen have done. Bill, I want to present you with this. Thank you for your service to our city.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Neil, we want to give this to you to say thank you for your time serving the city of Springdale. We want to thank these two gentlemen and also thank the other two members who are joining our Airport Commission. We know you're going to do a fantastic job and greater things are ahead for the city of Springdale.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colby.
So both of these outgoing commissioners have sat in this chair many times as our chairman. And have been a valuable resource for me over the years and will continue to be, whether you know it or not, down the road. And I appreciate everything that you guys have done for us. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to roll back into comments from the audience. Anyone have anything to present to the commission? All right. Is someone here representing Dr. Roller?
So is this the same, basically he rescinded this letter of intent previously, right? He had a letter of intent, he rescinded it, now he's ready to do it after finishing this other part.
Correct.
Okay,
It's the hangar closer to the runway, because we've got an LOI on the one.
Directly
Close to the
across
road.
from his.
okay. So he's moved spots, but same intent. Okay.
Correct.
And he's gonna do the same thing as he was before, build same size hangar, same everything.
Well, this one is only able to build 100 by 75.
Okay, this is closer to the airport,
Right.
closer to the
We got a
runway.
little smaller.
So this does not say anything about an LOI on it. Is this on the agenda? Are
Yeah,
we?
he sent a new LOI for that 100 by 75 spot.
Okay.
It's page 7.
Yeah, I'm looking at the agenda. Any discussion on that? Let's go ahead and go into a roll call vote to approve the LOI for Dr. Roller.
McCarron,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Gardner, Smith, Schoonover,
Yes.
Thomason.
Yes.
All right. James, you'll let Dr. Roller know to move forward. So we've got some other things to discuss in relation to the LOI, and Patsy Christie's here to help clarify some things for us, and Ernest Kate as well, but we're not quite ready to get to that point yet. But let's go ahead and go to Daniel from Summit. Give us your update, please.
Good to see everybody again. I know I've been gone for a little while and we didn't meet for a little while. First off, to Mr. Schoonover and Mr. Johnson, congratulations on your retirement from the board. I'd like to say from Summit, thank you for the direction you've given us, and personally, thank you for the direction you've given me as I went into my role a number of years ago in helping me learn, and that was very much appreciated. Looking at the numbers from Summit, as you can see, last month was great. It was a lot more than we expected. We just had a huge uptick in traffic, both turbine and piston. So there's been a lot more activity. Part of that, of course, was due to Bentonville shutting down. So there was a lot more. I think we got more operations out of that than we did fuel sales. I think it's just we're getting to the time of the year where there's just more people traveling. We got a lot of net jets in last month. It was very productive for a lot of the businesses at the airport. They were traveling a whole lot. And then with Mark and executive, he was a little bit busier last month than so far in the year. So that was very, very helpful. And then looking at years past as well, up about 4,500 gallons over what we normally did. So that was great. And so far continuing that into this month, I don't know if we'll quite reach the numbers that we did, the percentages that we did for last month, but it's looking good. So very
So
comfortable.
was the question asked to some of the new folks coming in, were they coming from Bentonville?
Well, they were pretty easy to spot. I know a lot of the aircraft that are up there, and it's mainly the flight school that was coming down, and they were the ones doing the operations. Bentonville, they moved all their aircraft to Rogers, so a lot of the stuff was up there, but we had a few in and out. We had, I don't think I worked directly with anybody out of Bentonville, but there was a few people that they just kept their plane on the ramp while Bentonville was closed down. And so they were at least at the airport. Yeah, that's really all on my end. I didn't see too much other than just seeing them fly by.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? It's been a really, really smooth month. I was gone half the month. I had a baby, but when I was gone, the crew did great. Customers are pretty happy. New hangar's full. New hangar has stayed full. I've been in contact with Dr. Roller about managing the aircraft in and out of that hangar for him. That hangar is going to be full immediately, and then I'm looking forward to the conversation of what he wants to do with the new hangar as well. And I have a list of turbine aircraft. So, continuing. So, But that's all I've got.
Anything for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel.
Right, thank you.
All right. Mr. Kate?
There's two items on the agenda. The first one has to do with the airport restaurant. It's my understanding that Ms. Nedrow has surrendered possession of the restaurant back to the airport. She's not paid rent for April or May, and now June. My understanding is she said she is intending on paying that, but she has surrendered possession back to the airport. I had sent her a letter back on May 24th advising her that of her 10-day secure period of being not operating like she was supposed to under the lease, and I guess she gave up the ghost on the restaurant, which is unfortunate because this is the third one in the last 2 or 3 years that this has happened. So,
It's an ongoing,
and Joel's not here
yeah.
to remind us we're not in the airport or in the restaurant business. So that's where we are with that. So
I would like some discussion on that, and I'll start it off. We fought this battle for years on getting someone in there that we can count on that makes a go of it. I'm not so sure. I'd like to have some discussion on, do we scale back and do some vending machines up there and not have a worry? We lose $400 in rent a month, but we gain whatever we gain from the vending machines. Daniel, I kind of like your input on that too, from pilot standpoint, what your thoughts are.
Okay, well, currently I have a vending machine downstairs, and full transparency, I make about $100 a month. And that was, with the restaurant there, so maybe a little bit more, if there's
And
nothing.
what does that have in it?
Name brand Cokes, and a whole lot of different snacks, and granola bars, chips, just the normal vending machine, that sort of things. I will note that there is a lot of request for office space, if that would be something you guys would be willing to discuss. There's a number of people at the airport. One in one of my hangars that he's just getting so busy that he would prefer to, he's doing a little bit of maintenance, and he'd really like to get all the paperwork out of there. It just frees up so much room. So he'd like to go into the terminal if that option ever opened up for him. And
That's
that-
certainly something that we'll discuss, but
Yeah.
today I'm just thinking more along the lines
Restaurant.
of between a restaurant
Mhm.
versus vending,
Sure.
what our thoughts are here.
We do get quite a bit of traffic that comes in to specifically eat at the restaurant just because they know that there is one there. They don't necessarily know who it is or what they have, but they'll fly in and ask for the restaurant. And now we've had to say, well, we don't have anything, but we'll give them a crew car and they'll go out to town and get a bite to eat. So there's always that, it's kind of a shame that they don't have a good restaurant or a restaurant at all. And we even get people off the street still, and we will for a while. We did during the last time we didn't have a restaurant, turning people away just about every day. So there's a draw for it for sure.
It's finding that person.
Mhm.
Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we need a restaurant. I think if it takes us 6 months to find someone, I think that we need to use discernment to find someone that's rent a restaurant like this before. It's not trying to take something they've done in a truck or at a stand where they were doing barbecue. We've done that. That kind of failed for us. I think when we put the notice out, hey, we're looking for someone to get in our restaurant, last time we had, we chose. I know one withdrew at the very end, but I feel like, maybe we do that again, maybe we'll get some more options like that. I think it's a draw. I know it's no longer a $100 cheeseburger, it's a $400 cheeseburger, but, because fuel prices have gone up, but I think it's a draw to our airport. I don't think we're ever gonna have the nostalgia of what we used to have there. And maybe we just have to look for some new option. But I think last time we had interest from other parties. I think we look and see what parties are interested. And I think that when we do that, we have to realize that, if we just don't feel like this is the one, this is gonna be the home run and they're our best choice, we just keep looking. I do that when I'm looking for employees. I wanna find one I think is great, and then let's try 2 or 3 more and make sure I can't beat that. And I think we do that with the restaurant as well.
Neil, what are your thoughts?
Neil? What are your
What are your
thoughts
thoughts on the restaurant?
No,
You don't have any?
no, I've been here with all of this, these trials, tribulations, restaurants. It has got such a stigma about it. It just don't exist. So until you get something that's solid, you can sell to the community, I don't think you're gonna have a successful restaurant, but, that's just me. And, but I know we've tried for years.
Yeah.
And years, and the only success we had was when we had a husband and wife.
Yep.
That started from scratch, hamburgers and things of this nature. And then we developed, at that time, we had a bunch of pilots that did a lot of hanger flying there in the restaurants. You don't see that anymore. At least I haven't. And I don't think they do that much anymore. You know, we used to have air shows, have a lot of competitions out there, stuff like that. And I think that interest is gone. So whatever you do, I think you cater to the time that we're living in.
Good.
And
Cameron?
all- Fast food is where everything's at now.
Yeah.
All restaurants are struggling.
Well, I mean, my personal thoughts are, you know, I even said this to James a minute ago, was even though I'm the one that's asking for more office space, we can't get rid of the restaurant. I think it gives us a strategic advantage against the other airports. I personally like having a restaurant there. A lot of our employees like having a restaurant there, and not having to leave the facility to go get lunch. I know the businesses that are operating there every day are growing. There's more people coming in. There's more aircraft. You guys can see that from the fuel sales. So that just means there's more activity at that airport. And for that restaurant to go away, I just think it would be a bad thing for us.
Bill?
Yeah, I agree with the thought that there needs to be one, but I also agree with Micah's, we need to do some real serious vetting on this one and make it clear to the prospective people that, you know, there's been some challenges in the past and we're looking to them to make this a success. And in the meantime, is there anything that we could do to work with some of the new restaurants in downtown Springdale to provide some sort of short notice catering? I know, Daniel, I'll get you to weigh in on that as far as how many requests that you get from NetJets or any of our customers for what consistently do you hear about food requests?
Food requests, they're pretty sparse. Usually, so if a customer is going with NetJets, it's all handled through the NetJets team, and NetJets is very structured in the way they do their catering. The people who provide the catering have to adhere to certain standards, and there's only a couple in Northwest Arkansas that can do that, and so it defaults to them. And so, having said that, if a local restaurant was willing to work, I could be a mediator between them and NetJets to get them introduced. At least start the conversation of, you know, if you guys are wanting any catering done, we'll save NetJets, you know, X amount of dollars. You know, they can look at the past sales specifically for Springdale. So I think if somebody wanted to, in downtown, be the catering provider for any charter services, and that's not just NetJets, that's executive and anybody else that's coming in and out. You know, we've got a default that's in town that we could go to. I think they could do decent business. There's a substantial markup on catering food.
Well, Spring Street Grill does a lot of catering.
Mhm.
That'd be an easy solution if Bill would be interested in it. I'll reach out to him and see what his thoughts are.
He's got a
So-
good reputation, yeah.
Yeah, at this point then, I don't know who I'm looking to necessarily. We need to post something on the website and hopefully to the next meeting in July, get them here and interview and discuss and let them know. Who does that go to?
Anna does. the
Anna?
website.
Anna.
I'll reach out to Anna and ask her then to take care of that. So that's what we'll do. We'll plan on next month, we'll meet and hopefully have some applicants here and go from there. Okay, thank you. All right, Ernest, sorry to cut you off in the middle there.
No, it's not a problem. So the next item is a discussion of it's actually two parts to it. First part is changing or streamlining the approval process for hangar construction. And then the other part has to do with design standards, which I'm happy to start talking about. That's why Patsy's here. But I did notice we had comments from the audience on the agenda that I think we might have skipped over, and I didn't know if there was anyone here
No,
who
we-
wanted to comment that.
We didn't skip it.
Okay, because I didn't want to make them sit through this, they didn't want to sit through this, so.
No, we've got to do. Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right, so we put these in your packet, they're on pages 10 through 14. Just so you'll know, we are planning to bring this forward next week to ordinance committee. Whatever you all, whatever changes you might make to this, we're planning on bringing this to ordinance committee next Monday and then to the city council on June 27th. And I appreciate Patsy being here. But basically, and I discussed this with Chairman Collier the other day, the first part of this is tweaking the procedure for construction plan approval. Because as you all know, there's been a little confusion with developers about the process and how the process works. And Patsy and I have talked about this, and we think this really kind of streamlines it and brings it more in line with our current large-scale development plan procedures that we have for other types of developments in the city. Gets the airport commission chairman involved early on during the design or the conceptual pre-design phase, which we always like for everyone to know on the front end what's going to be required, so there's no surprises later on. Then it comes to you all for a letter of intent. Then it goes through the formal large-scale development process. And once that's done and there's an approved set of plans, then it comes back to you and then we can talk about the lease. So I don't know if anybody had any questions about that part of it or
So
not,
the-
but
The hangup that we see every time is that people come before us and want to stick their toe in the water and find out whether it's okay before they've spent any money on drafting plans and designs. This still requires plans. I see preliminary, and it kind of changed the wording here for section 12-8 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Springdale. Is that still the same thing? They're still going to need to have true plans with a stamp before they're coming before to actually get going? Because that's what they're all wanting, like, they're trying to figure out whether they can even
Yeah.
do it before they're gonna
if you
invest.
look at the top of page 2 of the ordinance where it talks about the conceptual pre-design meeting, that's really where the person, before that's why I say this clarifies that and helps, because the way it is now, somebody's got to have plans with an architect's stamp on it now. And somebody can invest a lot of money to do that and then find out
Right.
they're not gonna be able to do it. So this provides for a conceptual pre-design meeting that's held prior to the submission of the letter of intent. And the meeting would be between chairman of the airport commission, the airport manager, city planning and engineering staff. Much like we do with other large-scale development plans, we have pre-application conferences. That way we go through all the various issues that might be involved before they, spend
Have
a
a
lot of
stamp
money
drawn.
on, engineering and architects, where they know, here's the standards, there might be something peculiar to that particular location that they might need to be aware of, whether it's drainage or something, utilities or something else.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That'll
Yeah.
smooth this up so much.
To me, I think that process will work a lot better. I don't know about Dr. Roller, y'all approved his. We thought maybe he might want to wait and go through this process as opposed
I was
to,
hoping he might be here today, but
he might be the first one to go through this process. Because we had one a couple of months ago where they wanted us to go ahead and approve a lease, and we didn't have an approved set of plans, so we couldn't really do that. So this helps streamline that process. That's the first part of it. To me, that's the easy part. Well, they're both easy, but the second half has to do with design standards. Quite often we run into issues with commercial design standards, which apply to airport hangars, but often we get into situations where, is it really are they really applicable, given the way a hangar may be positioned or another hangar may be built later? Do we really need perimeter landscaping, for example? And we had one recently, I think, where some variances were requested and were denied. So we kind of feel like that, you know, airport design standards are kind of their own thing. We can't lump them in with your normal commercial design standards. So Patsy's really good at writing these sorts of things. And that's what the second aspect of this is. Of course, she's got lots of experience with this, with the overlay district and the downtown form-based code and the C districts that we have. So that begins on the bottom of page 2 of the ordinance that's in your packet. And if there's any specifics about that, or why we came up with certain language that we did, Patsy would probably be able to answer those questions better than I could. You know,
Patsy, would you like to, since you're here, would you like to address the commission on the design standard changes?
Well, I've done a lot of design standards. I don't know a whole lot about airplanes and hangars, so. And my philosophy is never to go start from scratch, look around until you find one that works pretty well in other places and adapt that. So I didn't dream up this stuff on my own. I don't know enough about it to do that. But Ben Peters, who is the city engineer, had worked with the city of Bentonville in establishing their airport design standards. And so these are pretty close to what they are, trying to make them fit what we do in Springdale, not necessarily just taking what Bentonville has and bring it all in place, but customize it to make it fit into Springdale's situation. We tried using airport or just general commercial design standards, and as Ernest says, it creates a lot of variances. In my opinion, if you got to have a whole lot of variances to get something done, then something needs to be changed, because variances are supposed to be for hardships or something that's really unique, not just because that type of structure doesn't fit in with this. And so that's what this comes up with. The process works really well for us in that we try to make sure everybody knows on the front end, this is what you're going to have to do so you don't get shocked or taken by surprise of something that comes along. And so that's why we have gone on with these. We do a pre-application period or a concept meeting. And then once they go through all that and they actually submit something, then we do a pre-application meeting before they actually submit their large scale. So we get to a meeting and nobody's surprised. Now, that's a really good theory. It doesn't always work, but it's a good theory anyway. What? It works if they listen. Yes, it works if they listen. But we looked at some very basic things about what we thought would be important in the airport itself and how those things needed to tie together, like the compatibility of the buildings. I mean, I'm not saying everything has to be the same color, but you know, there's got to be some continuity to it. It looks like everybody was working together, playing nicely in the same sandbox, and it all looks the same. So not exactly the same, because there ought to be some capability to have some design if you want to do that. The frame itself, you know, we know it's got to meet a certain standard. It's got to be an airport hangar. It's got to function that way. It has certain kind of doors that it has to have. It has all those kind of things that are different. The height has to be different, and it depends on what the FAA rules are. So that's kind of, those are different than what we have. The roof pitches were something that's very unique to this kind of facility. So I think those are what are in there. My only concern was we say that the roof shape must be either gable, rounded, shed, or Quonset. But in the very next paragraph, when we talk about building size and shapes, we said it's got to have vertical walls. So that means we're putting up a vertical wall and a Quonset on the top. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But if you tell me that's what's going to happen or can happen, I have to let that happen, okay? Remember, we're writing minimum standards, not maximum. And if a minimum's not good enough, then the minimum needs to be changed. We have the size. I understand that you all want a minimum of 2,500 square feet per unit. And that's something I think we got from you guys. That's the size that you wanted. The type of doors, they have to be aviation doors. I just noticed recently, starting to look at it, that those new hangars that were built on the east side, both of them don't have the same kind of doors. One of them has something that they roll up this way instead of the other way. And I thought we were going all with the same kind of door. So if this information is not enough, or if that's what you want to let happen, that's fine. We just need to make sure that that's what this says in here. We think it's important that the exterior of the units that face the public streets like Powell Street and 265 present a good image to the city as a whole. And that's what we do with commercial design standards. Though on commercial design standards, it's the entire building, not just the side that faces the street. But what we put into here is what kind of materials you have to use depending on the side of the street that you're on. And there's specific ones for 265 and 412 and Emma. They have to be, can't exceed 50% of the wall area of metal on those facades. It's got to be something else, stone or hardy board or brick or something else like that. We don't tell you what material you have to use, but we can if that's what you want. If you want us to specify that they're all brick or they're all stone or they got to be some combination of that, we just need to put that in here. And then on the airport side, what it has to look like on those sides and the compatibility with the design and the architecture. This indicates that the builders will choose from a set of 4 pre-approved color palettes. That's something the commission has to decide what are going to be those 4 color palettes. And you give those to us and we'll make sure that they're used, or, you know, if you want just one, you know, whatever you want the airport to look like. The floors have to be concrete. That's pretty simple. Insulation, utility and mechanical equipment screening, if they put it on the outside and that can be viewed from the exterior properties, then that has to be screened, or it has to be a material that is suitable for screening on those. The setbacks are something that's set by the Airport Commission and the master plan of the airport. Parking spaces, those are based on, you can't put parking spaces naturally on the active side of the hangar. They must develop with a dust-proof, all-weather surface. And for me, that means not gravel. They have to be paved. Landscaping is something we talked about a lot. Landscaping is, in my opinion, what makes a lot of buildings look different from others. But you can't have landscaping all over in every hangar all the way around, because that doesn't work. So this establishes a procedure where there is a landscaping fund that everybody pays into, and then the airport commission determines what landscaping they want to have available, and that money has gone into that, and then that is the responsibility of the manager of the airport to take care of all that landscaping. So each individual hangar doesn't have to worry about landscaping. And then the barriers to entry, that's really just about half a grade above my pay grade. So I think what that means is the airport has to be secured. You can't just walk onto it anywhere, and that's how we take care of it, and you pay into a fund to take care of that. Now, that's pretty simple, but in my mind, that's how it works. Once the Airport Commission approves the preliminary plans, we run through the standard Planning Commission procedure. Planning Commission grants that approval. They submit us a set of construction plans. They get a stamped approved plan. They can go to construction. And then we do the final inspection to make sure everything is built like they told us they were going to. If there are variances requested, the variance request would need a recommendation for you guys before it goes to Planning Commission. Planning Commission would actually take the variance and take action on it. If that variance request is denied by the Planning Commission, they can appeal it to the City Council. That's the way our variance procedures. I mean, I can go into all kinds of detail, but that's kind of the highlights. You guys can read for yourself. I don't need to stand up here and read it to you.
On the bottom of page 4 in that section N, you're saying landscaping, you're meaning maintenance of landscaping?
I'm sorry?
On that section N, you're meaning the maintenance of that landscaping?
Well, instead of a hangar project having to put landscaping on their building, we would have to establish a fee. Y'all have to establish a fee, and they would pay that amount of money into that landscaping fee. And then the airport would decide, you know, what landscaping they want to put in, if they need to add some more, or yes, to maintain what's already there. Nice entrances into the airport's what we're looking for, some screening from adjacent properties, those kind of things. We know we don't want a lot of trees and stuff that create a bird issue, because we spent lots of time and dollars trying to get rid of the birds, so we don't want to encourage them to come back. So we gotta have to be a little bit, you know, deliberate in how we take care of that kind of stuff too.
So on that point, the fee that we're charging them, the advantage for us is simply that we're going to decide what goes there.
Right, and take care of it.
And what?
And take care of it.
And take care of it.
Right. So it's all mowed at the same time. All the landscaping looks good all at the same time.
And that's just new construction.
This is set up only for new construction. You would have to determine what you do with the existing ones. I'm only dealing with something new that's coming in. Now, because we have landscaping requirements for any commercial development, they are required to put in the landscaping. This takes that and puts that into your hands for any new construction. Existing, y'all have to decide what to do with
So
that.
we're actually buying plants. James is planting plants, and then we're maintaining those for years afterwards.
Right.
Okay.
Out of that pot of money that they,
Yep.
that they pay. Right.
No.
And we have a whole bunch of variances every time that comes up. One thing the planning commission looks for in a project, if you got a whole bunch of variances, we got a problem. And it'll get tabled for sure the first time. And a lot of times that's really serious. If you can't meet the standards, we have that many variances, we got something we need to talk about again, so.
Well, and I truly think this is going to give us the flexibility if somebody builds a hangar, that really doesn't need landscaping. If it's in a part of the airport that's not a road facing, we can, they don't need it. They're just not required to have it.
Or like what happened on the east side, 2 buildings.
Yep.
Yeah, what we did with that one was put a bill of assurance on the piece of
Right.
property that the landscaping would be put in when the second one was done. That's how we waived the landscaping requirements for the first building.
With a time limit. So this doesn't have a time limit, that's section 3 that talks about like airport facades. So if someone builds one and then we just don't have any interest in a space, we could end up with an ugly metal building facing a street for a long period of time. You know what I mean? We set a short time period on that, and if it didn't happen, then
Well, that's why it's gonna go to the committee that's gonna decide what's gonna go there. The funding from them will decide.
You can do it in a more uniform fashion, because like that section of hangars over there, you can have one look of landscaping all along the street down there that the airport commission takes care of, and it's not each individual hangar renter has to take care of it. Because that doesn't always get taken care of. The idea is to improve the image of the airport all the way around, and that's putting some of that responsibility back to the people who oversee the operation of the airport.
We've got her here. Got something, Gary?
I didn't even know this was coming up, but I'm gonna comment.
Will you go up to the podium for us?
I just have one other comment to make while it's coming. We never write a set of regulations that's completely right the first time, because they always have to be amended. And keep in mind, it's easy to put it on a piece of paper, but if we can't take care of it, or we can't administer it, then it's not worth putting on the paper.
Yes, sir.
We're in the midst, and I've worked with Patsy, and she's seen some drawings that we've done 2 or 3 times. We have, in about everything we've done, gotten along. She's gonna tell me like it is, and I'm gonna try to talk her out of some of it, and sometimes I win about 10%. But I just noticed on there, and this refers to what we have designed and drawn. And quite honestly, we're holding up for a couple of things, the other being the runway, whether we do it or don't do it. But I think if you'd see the plans, you would see how we have incorporated our small hangar into the hunt hangar that got pretty well blown down. And we've worked through with landscaping and mounds and so forth, but where the hunt hangar is, I just noticed on there, the front faces 265, and it's all metal. But if you saw the design and the signs and the landscaping, I think you could see why we did it. We had an architect that kept trying to put in windows, et cetera. And I said, we don't want windows there that somebody can go and shoot bullets or see if a plane's there or not. And so I'm concerned, just when I saw that, is do I have to scrap all the plans we've done on facing 265, and in front of that metal is mounds with trees and so forth. And I don't know if this is referring that you all are going to take care of our landscaping or not, but I don't know that you want to do that. Because I just,
Your side of the airport is different
Yeah.
because it's not
but it's on,
airport owned property.
okay, you're just talking
Yes.
airport.
What we're
Oh,
talking
Yeah.
about is airport
Okay.
owned property. Sorry, we didn't say that.
It gets confusing because we do own property on both sides of the
Okay.
runway. but-
I'm fine.
But yours is personal
I
property.
figure if I've made her happy, I've made you happy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't say that, because we all knew what we were talking about, and I knew the defense too, so
Your standards are.
But
your
I will
standards are
say,
different.
I don't know about, but I've gone to you, what, 2 or 3 times, and she said, you need a camera here, you need this here, you need that there, and like I say, I might win 10% of those.
But he's putting the sidewalk in too. That's usually our biggest thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, no, now, I'll build it some other place. It's not like I'm saving money. You've answered my question, because I didn't know if we go ahead, if we needed to have a talk, so.
You can take a deep
I
breath.
wish I hadn't said anything.
No, you're fine.
No, and that's a good point. It is just on property owned by the
Yes.
airport, but he does bring up another question. I wanted to see if Garver had any comments from a developer point of view, if they had any comments about these.
About the standards?
Yeah.
I think they make development easier at the airport, so I think it's clear. I think, we're pretty much making the standards more lax everywhere except for on that, perimeter of the airport, which the standards are pretty much staying the same. It also makes it easier, like, we mentioned from the landscaping perspective, we're just paying, each developer will pay into the fund, and so that takes that additional cost away from the developer as well. So I think it'll encourage development at the airport as well.
So you envision a one-time payment, not an annual.
No, we were envisioning a one-time payment.
And one more thing that I wanted to correct on that is I don't think we would want to waive it for those interior hangers, the ones that aren't gonna have landscaping anyways. I think we still want to have them pay into the landscaping fund just to help, beautify the perimeter of the airport. So every developer would pay.
Even if we don't have landscaping,
Yeah, so even if that landscaping only goes on the east side, or only
Yes.
goes along Powell.
Pardon
Makes
me,
sense.
wouldn't that just be incorporated in the rent? Seems like we're going off into oblivion here for a problem that doesn't exist, never has existed since I've been around. I've been there 50-some odd years. And all at once, this has become a major problem. And we're spending more time, we're spending more time on this than we are on stuff that we should be looking at. I.e. grinding the runway. That different people's needing for the aircraft to make it safe. But no, we're starting out here.
Well, we're just going through our design standard list. We're almost to get to the runway. But we do need to cover this as far as, the design standards.
Well, I understand that, but now we're talking about interior hangar space that people have, that they're gonna be paying into a fund, it should be into the, if you're gonna do that, put it on the rent to begin with, and not have a 2-tier system, is what I'm getting at.
Can I
Okay.
comment on that?
Hang on just a sec. He's been holding his hand for a while. Let's let him come to the podium. You state your name,
Just a-
please.
Yes, John Duggar. Just a question on that. I haven't even looked at the proposal there, but is fire protection systems in the hangar discussed in that? Because I know I've looked into building some hangars in the past, and once you get to a certain square footage, you're required to put in a pretty high-end fire protection system, and even to a greater level than a normal system because of aircraft storage, and they look at that as like hazardous, with the fuel and all that. Is that, and for the most part, I mean, from what I've seen, when you're just storing an airplane, like for us, the fire concern, and I understand the fire department's probably gonna be the one to talk about that, but it can get rather expensive to maintain, install, and then just maintain one of those systems, and all we're doing is really storing aircraft. So I don't know if that's something that could be looked at or something.
That's not part of the design standard because that's a fire code issue, and the city adopts the we don't have the ability to do variances to that.
That's set by the state of Arkansas with their fire code.
Yeah,
They
okay.
reviewed it, 10 years or so ago and made a lot of really big changes. Got a
Yeah.
new one.
I know it's just gotten complicated over the years, but anyway, that's all my question.
Thank you. Patsy?
Well, we got into this whole discussion about this because right now, the way the city's ordinances are written, a hangar is considered to be a commercial structure. And when you take the commercial design standards that the city has adopted and you apply those to a hangar, because it doesn't give an exception to whether it's an interior hangar, an exterior hangar, or anything else, that's where we got into a problem saying we need to do something different for the airport itself. And that's how we got into this. And if y'all wanna handle landscaping differently, that's fine, but until it's written into something that exempts the airport, I still have to make landscaping a requirement for a commercial building.
Right.
Okay?
I'm not disputing that we need landscaping, but I am telling you, in some situations, you're better off just have good sod there that can be mowed. You can go all over this town and look at commercial buildings that's met the design standards, put the landscaping in, and it grows up in weeds.
Well, that's why this
And-
is set up so you pay into it so that the airport managing body takes care of it and that airport hangar renter doesn't have to worry with it and it all looks good. And some of it may just be sod. Landscaping doesn't mean it's all covered with trees and shrubs and everything, but it all has landscaping that looks good for everything together.
Actually, probably would be less trees
Probably.
than anything.
Yeah.
Trees are not good for airports. we know
No.
that.
So on this, I see two things that a committee is going to have to determine. Palettes of colors, and then it looks like we need to work through this landscaping and what kind of fee. We got to come up with some sort of uniformity so it's not this big hour-and-a-half long debate every time we have a plan on what we're going to put there, so.
You don't have to do that today.
Okay.
Yes, that is something that, if this is approved, that will have to be done before she knows, for their pre-conceptual meeting, she won't even know what the acceptable color is.
We'll
Have
also
I
have
missed
to dis-
anything else here?
The other is
The barriers of
barrier to
entry.
The barrier to entry, and you'll have to determine that too.
Right.
Once
Cost
you all
of-
tell us what it is, that's what it'll be.
Okay.
We're not gonna get in the middle of all those discussions. We just make that information available, and they can't get a certificate of occupancy until all those things are taken care of.
Okay. So at this point, we're a month out before we need to address these and get them back to you, or we need to get them to you before?
Well, if the commission were to give us the green light to move this forward, this is actually going to be in the ordinance committee agenda for Monday night for the city council, in whatever form you may wish it to be. And then with the idea that hopefully the committee would forward it to the full city council on June 27th for approval. And I do have an emergency clause on there because I know we have people waiting for hangars. So we want to get this in effect as soon as possible. So that would then trigger the need for that.
So then the things we just discussed, the color palette, and what have you, we need to decide that by Monday?
Oh, I would think you would have. it
No.
in the middle of next month.
Oh.
Probably
Yeah.
by your next meeting, we would like to have it pretty well set, so we know based on that, because it's gonna take a little bit to
Yeah.
get through this process.
Okay.
Once the standards are in place, but before someone submits something, she's going to need to know that,
Gotcha.
if that makes sense.
Unless you guys already know what color you want. Tell me what color range you want, I can get ballot for that. The issue is the fees. Y'all have to determine what fees you want to charge. And we could look around and see if there's some examples of how they're done in other places to give you some information about how other people have calculated those fees. If you want me to, we can do that, because I know they're used in other places.
That'd be helpful.
Hopefully next meeting will be in the
Next
new,
door.
the new meeting facilities, so should be.
I know we want to hurry. I know there's people that want to do this, but I also don't want to set up policy that we haven't thought all the way through. I personally would like to look at what the commercial standards are that they're asking for all those variances on and maybe look at some of the history of that. I can research that. I just want to see what variances they're asking for in the past and which things in your current commercial standards are lacking now and not in here that we've just kind of taken for a benefit of the doubt that it's always been there and they've always had to follow that standard. Does that make sense?
I can tell you the basic ones are the landscaping requirements, of having other than metal.
Right.
And our interpretation is the entire building has to be more than 50% something other than metal. And those are the two that we get the most for. Now, we know you gotta have parking spaces and you can't park on the taxiway, that's just common sense. That kind of stuff works. But those are the two that we see the most variances for, and that's the two that we have outlined here. The other option is you don't issue any letters of intent until we get this worked out. You have control of when those letters of intent get approved too.
That's right. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you have to make a decision today. I just know that we've been talking about this for several months, and I know you all have been ready to get this moving forward, so we're in a position to do that. But if you want to wait a month, we can wait a month too, but
No, I'd like to move forward with it. I think we've got a little homework to do, but I think for the most part, this is all good. We just need to clarify a couple things.
and like Patsy said, invariably we'll find that there might be something that needs to be tweaked. We can come back and amend it. And also, another reason we did it the way we did it, we amended it in the aviation chapter of the Code of Ordinances as opposed to putting it in the zoning ordinance, which also speeds the process up for getting this in place as well.
Okay.
And everybody will know where to look for it. It's building hangers, so
Yeah.
commercial design standards, so go to the aviation section.
Perfect.
That is to make it easy for people. My job is not to make it hard,
Right.
but to make it easy.
Well, this will definitely help. Anyone have anything for Patsy while she's here? Thank you so much for coming, Patsy. That was huge.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
So the doors, do we want to have a standard on what we're doing with doors? I didn't realize we had agreed on it and they're mismatched until I drove by the other day and saw that.
That's the most expensive part of a
Yeah.
hanger is their door selection, so. We usually let their owner determine how they want their door, whether they want a roller, bifold, or manual or power.
I personally don't see that as a big issue. I mean, as long as it is designed for hanger, I think we're good.
Anything else before we move on? All right. Anything else, Ernest, from you?
Well, if you all are good with us moving this forward, I'd love action by the commission, so I get a green light to bring this forward to ordinance committee and then to city council. Somebody wants to make a motion.
Sure. I'd ask for a motion.
What are you thinking, Micah?
I'm thinking I want to wait a month and look at it. They may have been working on it for 3 months. I just got it
I know.
last week and on Friday, and this is the first time I've sat down to read through it. And I assure you, I will read through it carefully in the next month and have.
Yeah,
really
and
good
I don't
numbers.
want to bring it forward to city council until you all are comfortable, is why I was asking if
Should-
there was any action to be taken, because I don't want to bring it forward to you all already.
Should we form a subcommittee to get together and at least give us some time to look through it and, if there's any word changes or any recommendations in it or anything like that?
I'd be fine. I'd love to sit on that committee.
Well, I would just remind you, anytime you guys start talking about subcommittees about,
Press has to be notified.
well, and you have to record the meetings under the Freedom of Information Act.
Or
all
go
public meetings.
individually, and we can bring it up at the next meeting.
Doesn't matter to me.
Bill, what are your thoughts?
I would like some time to review it too, so.
What do you think?
I think it deserves a month, review, further review.
And I know we've got a couple of members that aren't here today, and we have two new ones coming on next month as well.
Right.
So, like I said, I'll do whatever the commission's wishes are. We're prepared to bring it forward. But if you'd rather wait, we'll wait.
Sounds like a consensus is to wait.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to the next airport commission meeting in July then.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you,
If you
guys.
have
Yeah.
any questions for me, just come to my office. Keep in mind, we're moving in the next 2 weeks. So it's gonna be kind of chaotic for a couple of weeks, but we can work something out.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Can you send a copy of this to the new member that's not here? You have a copy, right? Yeah. So can you send a copy of
To
the-
Jason McMullen.
Colin? Yeah, so that he has opportunity to look at it too.
All right, Laura, is Laura here? Yeah, there you go. Operations report?
I don't have anything substantial to report.
Everybody's paying their bills? All right, James, activity?
As you've seen, everybody's, doing well for operations, so we're up about all year. I think January's the only month that we're behind, so.
Yeah.
Operations are doing well, everything's looking good, so it's all good.
All right. Greg, go ahead and start with Garver.
Can we move the Jeff Mann costs or outstandings down to the section that's out of hangar balance owed? Can we move that down on that report? So it doesn't look like we have outstanding balances on our active stuff.
We've tried to get it moved, and I don't know if their system doesn't allow them to do it that way or not. Ernest and I both, I've asked them to take that off of our reports. It keeps coming, so,
We'll ask again.
yeah. Great. I just got quick updates for today. Most of our projects are wrapping up or just getting started. First, I'll talk about the Taxiway B extension project. This is our FAA-funded project that's been going on for about the last year. We are finished with all major construction items. Really, the only item that's outstanding is we're waiting on a part for the northern PAPIs. And once that part gets in, we'll flight check the PAPIs again, and then we'll be able to close out the project. I don't have an update on when that part will become available. It's just we've been having, or our contractor has been having an issue getting a supplier that has it. So I'll keep you guys in the loop as that one progresses. For our East Hangar construction project, that one also major items are wrapped up on that project as well. Really, all that we lack is installing the fence. Whenever I drove by today, we were waiting on the roller hangar to finish with their fence and get their equipment moved out of the way. And so we'll probably come in here in the next week or two, get the fence installed, and that'll allow us to close out that project as well. Any questions on the taxiway extension or the East Hangar project? Awesome. The only other project that I have here is the Powell Hangar reconstruction. I've mentioned this one a bunch of times in the past, but we're in the design phase. We're actually completing the design. We're advertising the project on Sunday, which means we should have bids in hand about a month from now, which will be the Tuesday before our next meeting here. So next month's meeting, I'll have bid prices for you all to approve, and we can decide how we want to move forward with awarding that project. So next meeting will be a big one for that Powell Hangar project. And then additionally, we've been working with Patsy going through the large scale development, and I'll have an update on that. July 9th is when we're going to be on the Planning Commission agenda, so I'll update you guys on how that goes as well. Perfect. That's what I was hoping. Any questions about the Powell Hangar project? Main thing there is a month from now we should have, like I said, bids in hand, ready to move forward with a contract with a contractor.
And the next project after that?
You caught me off guard with that question. I think the next project after that will probably be another hangar, probably a clear span hangar once we finish this Powell Hangar. As far as the FAA money that we're planning on spending for the next year, we don't have a major project. We're banking that money for a bigger project in 24. And I haven't heard from the FAA program manager on it. They've been discussing, evaluating our 5-year capital improvement plan. And so she should be able to give me some feedback on what year we'll be able to start our next large project.
Doesn't the detention pond come next?
So we're doing the detention pond with the Powell Hangar project. You can actually see that in green right there. And that'll cover the development of the entire Powell area over here, as well as a lot of this side of the airport. But as far as if you're referring to the regional detention facility that we spoke about, that we don't have that programmed on our capital improvement plan yet, but that's something we can start entertaining or looking at how we want to fund that if that's what you're interested in.
All right. So I also asked Greg to give us some information on the groove pavement on the runway. And he's got some information here for us. And Gary George is here. He wants to visit with us a little bit too. But let's start with Greg and let him give us the information that he has here. And all this today, all we're doing is we're just discussing and looking at some options here. I'll tell you that Fayetteville and Rogers both have grooved runways. Bentonville, I understand, is in the process of getting a grooved runway. X&A has a grooved runway. So we are definitely in the minority of not having the grooved runway. So go ahead, Greg, and give us what information you've got.
And I'll actually correct you on that, Greg. I know I said it on the phone. The Bentonville is not getting a grooved runway as of now, from what I understand. They didn't award it, but I'll have to go back and verify if that changes, if they are.
Okay.
And here's the list of those airports, like Greg was mentioning. I'll leave this up for a little bit. But back to kind of some pros and cons on runway grooving, and this is some of the research that I've done based on advisory circulars, and these are our design guidelines that are put out by the FAA. There are also other independent studies that can conclude something different or something more stringent. But what I'm focusing on is what the FAA has accepted. And so main thing here is the pros of grooving a runway are increased traction during wet weather events. You'll see decreased landing distances just because you don't have to worry about hydroplaning. Other pros, like I said, increased traction during icing events because we have those grooves. Whenever you have small ice events, that ice will just form in the bottom of the groove pavement rather than on the top surface. So sometimes it'll allow the runway to stay open a little bit longer there. However, a direct con related to that is whenever you get enough ice to fill up that groove and kind of get onto the pavement, it becomes an issue from a maintenance standpoint if you're trying to remove the ice. Your snowplow won't be able to get there into the bottom. Another issue that I've seen is your snowplows. They might hit these grooves, and you'll see FOD or pieces of the pavement come up, and so that's another concern, another con of the grooves as well. Some other cons are just increased costs of construction moving forward. I've got some cost estimates that I'll go through here in a second on what I expect it to cost, but my second point on the con there is if we are, we plan to do a major runway rehabilitation, a mill and overlay type project every 10 to 15 years. You can expect adding the grooving into that type of project will just increase your project cost by 10 or 20%. We're looking at $300,000 or $400,000 there. But once again, that's going to be covered by the FAA, so not a huge concern for you all here. And then I've got a summary and some examples here. I'll go straight to the example. This was looking at the Gulfstream G150 here. During wet conditions, it needs about 5,200 feet of runway for its operation. Dry conditions, it's down at 4,700. And then this specific plane, during wet conditions on a grooved runway, the manufacturer allowed the wet conditions and the dry conditions to be similar. So you're seeing a 500-foot runway length savings there. So what that means for Springdale, and I kind of chose this plane specifically, you can see Springdale has about a 5,300-foot runway. This one was close with that 5,200, but if we had a plane similar size that during wet conditions, and we didn't have the groove runway, it might not be able to land or to be able to operate at the airport. And one thing I wanted to note about this is, while I was doing my research, some manufacturers are able to give credit for a grooved runway. I looked at 3 or 4 other jets that didn't acknowledge any sort of improvement from a grooved runway. Now, there is research and data that supports that grooved runways do increase your traction, but some manufacturers just weren't willing to give them that credit. So in conclusion, what I want to say is it's very specific to the airport or to the airplane and to the tenants that you have. And so if we've got people that are coming in and saying, hey, I've got this specific operation, and maybe there's a bunch of them that are able to come in and justify this additional expense, then it's definitely something worth considering. As far as funding, I'll go to my next sheet here. I kind of looked at two options. Neither of them are great, I'm going to say. Option one, this is utilizing the, let's see, what is this one? This is utilizing FAA funding, and so what we're proposing in this project is just a runway rehabilitation. So we're going to seal coat, we're going to seal any cracks that are there out on the runway. So this is a typical project that we should be doing on our pavement every 5 to 7 years, just to keep up with it, so that we can push off large rehabilitation type maintenance. And so this will be installing a seal coat, installing grooves, installing repairs to the cracks that are out there. And what this is coming out to is about $940,000 for that work. And the reason I wanted to present it as a runway rehabilitation is because the FAA will bite on that type of project. They like runway rehabilitations, they like funding, increased safety, longevity of pavement, that kind of thing. And so that's where you can get this funding down here at the bottom, 90% funded by the FAA, and then the 10% match will come from the state. So what you're seeing here is the Springdale Airport's match will be $0. However, there's one caveat. I included this in my email, but I didn't get to it. Is that the FAA may not fund the grooving portion of this project. I think we'll have to go through a process with them of proving that it is valuable and does provide value to the airport. And so what I do want to prepare you all for is for the FAA to say, we'll fund everything but the grooving. And if that's the case, then the airport is looking at about $170,000 just for the installation of the grooves. So that's option one. That'll be your largest overhaul option. Like I said, it'll be a full runway rehabilitation with seal coat. So it'll not only install grooves on your pavement, give you new markings, and then kind of extend the life of the pavement as well.
So you said 10 to 15 years for major stuff, but then this is every 5 years?
So yeah, and it depends on what we do inspections on the pavement, and as we see, cracks form, we can give it a number. And once that PCI is what it's called, once that PCI gets low enough, that's when we can say we need to do a seal coat, and that'll help bump your PCI back up. Or if your PCI gets so much lower, we might have to do something like a mill and overlay like we did in 2018, and that bumps it up to pretty much being brand new again. And so the idea is every 10 to 15 years, do a large mill and overlay type project, and then in between, then try to supplement with 1 or 2 of these seal coats to just keep pushing off that large rehabilitation.
So we did the large one 5 years ago.
Correct.
So we're ready for something like this, if not now, in the next just couple years.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And
And I would
history with any other airports as far as the FAA not approving the
grooves?
grooved runway?
I believe that was Bentonville. So I think they tried to get it. They're doing a runway widening project right now. And I'll have to confirm that. I see you looking at me over there, so you may know something that I don't, but I can confirm that. But as of when I was talking to one of my coworkers late last week after Greg called me, is that they weren't doing the grooving because the FAA wouldn't pay for it.
Will they pay to maintain it after it's done? Like the future ceilings, will that include the grooving, or is it just the first time, or is this something we're committing to every 5 years?
So that's definitely a conversation that we would have to have, and I'd have with our program manager. I would say yes, they would fund the rehabilitation of it afterwards, just because we could say that's the rehabilitation of the runway as a whole. That's a good question, though. Moving on to the second option, just really quick. This is going to be your quicker option. The previous option, using the FAA funding, sometimes we got to wait a year or two to be able to get that on their funding plan. And so that's if this is something that the airport's interested in, I can make that phone call to Kathy, our program manager, and see about when we could fit that type of project in. Otherwise, this is going to be our quicker project. This is something we could do here in the next year or so, but it is going to come at a little bit more of an expensive price. So this is just going to be installing the grooves on the existing runway and then remarking the runway, because whenever you install the grooves, they want you to come back and remark, because we'll be messing up a lot of the markings that are out there. Important part down here is the project funding. The ADA will do an 80-20 grant up to $300,000. So the ADA will give us $300,000, and that'll leave the airport with about $180,000 out of pocket for that project.
ADA doesn't, they'll pay for grooving.
I think they will support it, yes. I don't have confirmation from them, but I think we can make a good case that it enhances safety of the airport, and the ADA is less concerned about justifying, I'm gonna say unreasonable things. They don't care as long as we can say, this is something that Springdale values, and they'll be happy to support Springdale.
You like to?
Yep.
I'm not prepared like he is.
That's all right.
I brought just a couple of things. If you take one, pass it down, there's one of these, there's five different deals in there. Greg, when you and I talked before, and I think we had some different information on where Bentonville was and even what he has said where they are. I think his last slide, and this is a guess on my part, his last slide was saying that the Arkansas ADA came in and paid for some, and the cost to do ours would be $181,000. Am I understanding that right?
That's correct.
And I showed you an email of what was sent to me, and I don't like to talk about things that I don't have permission to talk about, but I think probably our runway is longer than Bentonville's, and I can see that where the number I showed you that I got in an email was very close to that. Y'all, Micah, you said you don't have time to read things, and I'm just in the same position you are, but what I passed out there is 2 short articles, 3 excerpts from articles that were 48 to 78 pages long. You can go on the internet and find them, and I wasn't going to burden you with that, but I just took a slide and said, look at this. But the main things I pointed out to you there, it talks about runways, et cetera, how different tires react and so forth. And again, y'all can go and look at that just like I did, and I had an architect research some stuff. I can't talk, I'm not gonna try to debate the safety of it. I think without a doubt, it's safety. This got brought up to me by our pilot. They're changing some of the designs of these jets these days, and one of the smaller jets that's taken over the market does not have reversers. We're holding up buying a plane because of the runway. We're holding up partly on these hangars because now that this has been pointed out and where we see some things going, we're going to look at safety first. I asked Adam Jones, they have a jet here that they operate, that Superior operates out of, and we're very good friends with them, and they have the same concerns that we have, and that's why I brought it up. It's about safety. I went to the point of checking with some charters, and you mentioned you've seen a big increase from NetJets from Bentonville. I'm of the understanding Bentonville's doing it right now at night. That's the information that I have. But I've also talked to a charter company, a large charter company, and their data will say that if you groove it, your runway would probably be suitable, and they weren't talking about Springdale. They were saying runways, smaller runways, would be suitable to land on 80% of the time instead of 20% of the time.
Now, I don't know if that correlates. You said you had a huge increase in net jets. I don't know if that correlates because I'm assuming a lot of net jets go in Bentonville for Walmart.
Up until recently, only certain types of NetJets planes were allowed.
That's right. So I agree with that from the research we've done. So what I'm saying to you all is you can't just look at who's here. The charter companies are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you really know what they buy, I mean, they advertise it. They're buying bought a whole bunch of these jets that doesn't have reversers. So you can get real technical, but the bottom line is, I don't think anybody will say they're not safer. You were asking some questions about snow and all of that. I can't tell you all that, but I can tell you they'll talk about what grooving is best, which way to go, and it drains better. I can't tell you about how often it's going to be, but I go back to in our business, if our competition is doing it, then we ought to look at it. We're not smarter than the competition in some areas we may be, but if you've got again, I'm the assumption that Bentonville's doing it right now. That's what's been sent to me. If you've got Bentonville, Rogers, Fayetteville, XNA, which that's a different deal, and we're the outlier other than Siloam, I think for safety, that should tell this commission all they need to know. That's what it's about. To my knowledge, you've never had anybody run off the runway. But let's hope they don't, because on the south side, it's a disaster. It's a disaster anytime. Most of it can be pilot error. But our pilots have said, you buy something without a reverser, this is your home base, you better think about that long and hard unless it gets grooved. Adam, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
Are they maintained differently, the groove pavement? Like, sounds like a de-icer makes more sense, Greg, do you know?
I don't know those
I mean, if
I don't know
like
the
snowplow
answers to
would
that,
work, makes
but-
sense. So I was just
but
curious
what
if
I-
a de-icer or something's a better.
Yeah. How are you going to know? It's like I said to our pilot, well, we'll just land at XNA. Well, you're going to lose a lot of money if we're one of several that do that. You're going to lose a lot of money. It's a trade-off, and I just got to believe you all better be thinking of safety first, and just look at the data. Look at the data.
So I'm Adam Jones. I fly for Superior Capital Holdings. So we have an Embraer Phenom 300 based on the east side of the field. That's the best-selling light jet or jet in its category for like 5 years in a row. These things are everywhere. I think there's another one that's semi-based on the field. Yeah. So when it's dry, it's perfect. We get in every single time. When it gets wet, we really have to consider how much water's on the runway. And we don't have a good ability at the airport to determine exactly how much water is on the runway at that point without sending a truck or somebody else out there to get some sort of guesstimate on that. So we have ended up in XNA probably 4 times since we've had the aircraft over the last 3 years, which is not the end of the world, but it is inconvenient to have to move it in. Net jets, Flex jets, those 135 guys, I can't speak for them, but they will have SOPs or standard operating procedures that dictate how long the runway has to be if it's wet or raining or contaminated and whatever. I will tell you that most of those are based off of a 1.3 landing distance conversion or calculation. So when you put in that 1.3 calculation into our landing distances, we are right at around that 5,000, 5,100 foot distance right now when the runway gets wet. So that has prompted us to go other places in the past just to enhance that margin of safety. Having those groups on the runway would greatly assure us that there is not standing water or as much water on the runway and give us a much more confident ability to go into that into the airport when it's raining. And then, like I said, that aircraft is heavily utilized by NetJets, FlexJets, all these 135 operators that may opt to go into XNA or Rogers should it start raining at Springdale.
One other comment, I just want to compliment you on whoever takes care of the runway when there's snow and stuff like that. You do a great job. You really do. And hey, we've been pleased, but again, this didn't even come to my attention till we're looking at what's on the market. And when a pilot mentions something to you, you better, and that's when I started, and I think, I stand to be corrected, but that's what it's in my email, is Garver is doing Bentonville.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and correct that. I sent a text while he was talking. Bentonville is now getting grouping, so.
And so, Greg, that's why I was so confident in what I was telling you, because I have talked to several people, and I have the number, and so that's why I said that last deal, I think, is what they're doing. And that's all I have to say. Safety first. Thank you.
For coming. Thank both of y'all for coming. We appreciate your time.
And you really do a great job on the runway clearing. I mean that sincerely. I'm not just trying to get points.
Greg, any follow-up?
No follow-up, but I think okay, I guess I do have a follow-up, but I think what they said echoes the point that I was trying to make, that it's dependent on the type of users, the type of tenants. Like, he mentioned that I think NextJet was what you said, has SOPs. It might be valuable to get those SOPs, and we can know, oh, we meet the category, or Springdale can meet the category for 70% of the aircraft that they use, or something like that. So I think hearing from pilots, hearing from even Daniel, who hears from pilots that want to fly in here, I think that's probably the most valuable part of this decision. Less about what I'm able to find through the advisory circulars, like I mentioned. It's more about if a pilot is comfortable flying in here or not should drive the decision.
So back to, do you mind pulling the two estimates up that you had a while ago?
Yes, sir.
And where's our CPI or PCI or
CIP.
CIP?
I can pull it up, but for what purpose are you asking?
Well, when is we need to rejuvenate our runway? When is that?
So right now it's not programmed on the CIP, but we can probably put it on there in the next 2 or 3 years. Generally, whenever we send out that 5-year plan, we're saying this is what we think we're going to do for the next 5 years, but the next 1 to 2 years are really what they're focusing on and what they're programming and planning on spending their money on. So, and there's also some more, like if we have a small enough project, and this one, the FAA, the option one, being in this $800,000, $900,000 range, we might be able to fit it in without giving them too much trouble, because of the amount of money that the airport gets on a regular, they get $150,000 every year. And so if we're able to pay for it with that banked money, they don't really put up a fight. If we have to ask them for discretionary money, is what we call it, when we need to pretty much take a loan from big FAA, that's when they want to see it on your 3 to 5 year plan there.
I don't necessarily see this as like a safety issue as much as a safety enhancement. Which
Correct.
obviously, every decision we make, we try to make the airport safer. So that makes sense. I just don't know if they'll see it that way.
And James, Kathy, will Kathy be here tomorrow? Is that right? Or is that next week? Okay, so tomorrow. So that's something we can, she'll be in town. We can go out and look at the runway, and I'd be happy to have that conversation with her.
So from the FAA standpoint, best case scenario, what would we be looking at for completion?
I really wish you'd give me one more day to figure that out, because like I said, I can talk to her tomorrow. Best case, 2 years is what I want to say. But
And the state funded?
state funded 1 year. Or maybe not best case. State funded, we could put a grant together next month, get the grooving guys who are already are comfortable coming into town. I mean, we could have it done this season, maybe summer or fall, depending on how quickly we can move.
Okay, so we'll have more information tomorrow.
I'd really like to know if it's 170,000 one time or if it's 170,000 every 5 years. That question of whether they will cover it for future
Okay.
resurfacings.
That's a question for tomorrow. You can,
Yes, sir. Yep. Me and James will be meeting with her, so we can definitely bring that up.
It doesn't, I mean, if we have to pay again and again, it doesn't necessarily mean we don't do it. It just means we have to always realize we've got that cost coming every time.
but that's gonna be rolled into the grant.
I was gonna say, I don't see that. I think it's a one-time, then it's your runway. So then it's under your runway maintenance. Then on.
If it goes that way, that makes it easier for sure.
Okay, anything else for Greg while we got him up here? Yes, sir?
Just as this will be my last comment probably, but, we have made major changes, upgrades in that airport for years, years, years. I can remember Gary flew a Twin Bonanza, an old twin boat.
I never did think we'd have a jet.
Pardon me? So we've had adequate facility out there for every airplane. We've seen the upgrades. I remember when the largest airplane out there was an Aztec and some of those Twin Bonanzas and stuff. I think it's just no brainer. We need to upgrade the airport, modernize it to the group, regardless. Find the money and do it. And it's gonna need to be done. It has to be done. Ought to be done. I don't think you could. I think you just gotta move toward doing it. That's my 2 bits worth.
I agree. I
Thank you.
think the commission's in agreement too. We just wanna go through tomorrow, find out exactly where we are, where we stand with the FAA.
Right. So what I'll do is we'll have that meeting with Kathy tomorrow. I'll get as much information as I can, and I'll plan to come back for the July meeting with 2 options. One option that says we go the state route, it's going to take this amount of time, it's going to cost this amount of money, or option 2, it's going to take this amount of time and it's going to cost this amount of money. So I should be able to have all those answers by next commission meeting.
Perfect. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. I come across sometimes mad. My boys tell me that. And I say, no, I'm passionate. So, but I appreciate it
We're glad you
very
came.
much. Thank you.
Hey, Greg, I got one more question for you. So on either one of those options, how long would a runway be closed or
Good
something
question.
like that?
So they can do this work at night for the most part. I would expect 10 to 15 days of night work, or 10 to 15 like 8 to 10 hour shifts. Grooving, they can do it at night. That seal coat, if we were to go the FAA option that installs the seal coat, that might be a 2 daytime closure. Like we'll close it for 48 hours straight. And so that is something that is worth considering. But I think if we were to just do I'm certain that if we were to just do the grooving, it can be at nights only, and we don't have to worry about that many
Okay.
disruptions.
Bill has something for you,
Yeah,
Greg.
is it correct, the entire length of the runway would be grooved?
Yes, sir. The whole length. They don't do 10 feet from each edge of the runway isn't grooved, and that's just because it's unlikely that there's going to be a tire there anyway. So
If you had to make an educated guess nationwide, what sort of grooved versus ungrooved? And I know that's a dangerous
Right.
question or a tough question, but
anything in the north is going to be grooved. Anything Colorado high elevations, you're going to see grooved runways a lot, just because of ice, that kind of thing. As far as I think what Greg kind of started off the meeting with, I think it depends. Yeah, this right here. If you get commercial service, I say it's a good chance that it's gonna be grooved. I would say if you're over 7,000 feet or so, there's a good chance it's gonna be grooved, because those are gonna be your big enough runways that are getting serious traffic, lots of jets. As far as if there is a rule on when a runway needs to be grooved, I think it becomes whenever you start to get commercial service. I think that's the rule.
And I think this is more of a regional question, regional issue. If everyone else from Fayetteville to Bentonville has a grooved runway, I think we need to have a grooved runway as well. Anything else before Greg steps down? All right.
There's no question.
Awesome.
Solid
Thanks, everyone.
Springs is the lone outlier with us. Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
It's interesting they groove in the north, because it sounds like it's harder to do snow maintenance in the north.
Right, and they have a lot more serious snow removal equipment, like you said, de-icing, and that's something I can look into as well. It isn't something that I've ran into that often in the past, so I didn't expect that question. I'll come prepared next time.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you for
Thank you.
everything. Appreciate you helping me out through that. All right, any old business from the commission? Comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I'd like to take just a second and give a word of thanks to Mayor Sprouse, the city council, Ernest, you and your staff, current and past commission members, Patsy's City Planning Commission, and James, very importantly, you and Laura, and Daniel, the FBO staff. I'd like to say thanks from the bottom of my heart to that entire group that I've mentioned. I apologize if I've missed any, but it's been a real pleasure and an honor to be a part of this for 15 years. I appreciate y'all putting up with me for this
We
long.
appreciate you, Bill. Glad you were able to come today.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Just to lump-
comments?
Just to lump that in exactly what we just said. I've not worked out of the last 25 years with a better group of people, all in all. Bill named everyone associated with it. I fully agree. We've had a good run. And I appreciate you for letting me be here with you. Thank you.
Well, as I said a while ago, I appreciate you too and all the years that you've been a part of this and mentored me and mentored this commission, and we certainly appreciate all your efforts. And you are always welcome to come back in and sit and visit with us and give us any input that you've got. Anything else from the commissioners? Thanks, everyone. We had a good meeting today. We are adjourned.